Coming up on Smart Tech today, Dan Moren is here in place of Matthew Casanelli, and we have a lot to talk about. We kick things off talking about video doorbells. We talk about Google going all in on Matter and a reminder of Matter versus Thread versus Bluetooth versus Wi-Fi and all those protocols. Plus, Ikea's Bluetooth speaker with Spotify, Apple's HomePods with multiple colors, and an update on Dan's smart home. Stay tuned. We've got a lot to cover on this week's Smart Tech Today.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. For a limited time, save up to $120 on Molecule air purifiers by visiting molecule.com and using promo code STT120 at checkout. Enjoy free shipping and a 30-day at-home trial on your order. And by userway.org. Userway ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off Userway's AI-powered accessibility solution. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, dynamic, and well, let's be honest, the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am one of your hosts, Micah Sargent, and this week I am joined by a different co-host, a good pal, a good friend, and my co-host on Clockwise. It's Dan Moren. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Micah. Thanks for having me again. I like to talk about things and the internet that connects them.
Yes. Someone says, what do you mean when you say smart tech? And I say, well, it just means that it's connected to some service or some server or some phone or something somewhere. And then it's more confusing than it was if I had just not said anything at all. And then I get sad. But we are here to talk today about quite a bit of stuff. I've got some grab bag stories for us to go through and kind of grow from there. I wanted to talk, first of all, about Wyze is a topic that comes up on this show a lot, or is a company that comes up on the show a lot, because Wyze has done this really cool thing of coming up with a way to sell smart home products where they are still very good quality, but they don't cost an arm and a leg. And they do this through cost-cutting methods. They do this through direct sales. They do this through smart design. And they do this by I wouldn't say cutting corners is not the right word here. It is optimizing their product design for lower costs. And now Wyze is out with a new video doorbell. It's called the Video Doorbell Pro, and it costs $65, which when you look at the market of video doorbells out there, $65, it's kind of like, even if this didn't work, it's worth just looking into to see how well it works for you. But I've got a long history with Wyze. I've got several Wyze cameras in my home. And so I know even outside of it that this is something that I think would be worth looking into. So with this, you get a wire-free camera that has 6 months of battery life. And then you can also hardwire it if you want to give it continuous power. But up to 6 months of battery life. It has this square, ultra-wide viewing angle. So instead of sort of cropping it at 16:9, it lets you see the full frame, sort of circular. You get free cloud storage, which is, again, a very unique feature. You don't have to have a subscription in order to see motion-activated videos, but you can pay for a subscription to get more access to videos, like recording a lot of video over time. It comes with a little plug-in that you can plug in inside of your home that is a chime. And what I like about this is one of the things that bugs me about my current doorbell is it sounds like a doorbell. And what does that mean? It means it sets off my dogs. So with this, you could change it to a different tune. You could even do a bark if you wanted to, which maybe for some dogs would make them not bark. I don't know why there's a bark, but there's a bark. And then the other feature that I had to mention, this is fantastic. We just had somebody on the Tech Guy either last weekend or the weekend before that, who was talking about how they could not get their Nest doorbell to connect to their Wi-Fi network. And they had to call Nest support, and Nest support said, not only do you have to link it, because they had the Nest whole home mesh system. Not only did it have to be set so that it connected to one specific mesh node, like it couldn't just go throughout the whole network, but on top of that, because the doorbell was 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, then this is ridiculous. It is literally in the support documents for the Nest product. They tell you, quite literally, to take the product and move away from your router so that there are enough walls between you and the router that the 5 gigahertz radio doesn't reach the product. Now, if I've got a doorbell that's attached and installed on in the front space, and it's a powered doorbell, then I don't know how I'm supposed to make that happen. Super ridiculous. Not great. But this Wyze video doorbell, even if you have a router or router system that doesn't have the ability to turn off 5 gigahertz temporarily, this has dual band Wi-Fi built in. So it can do 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Dan, I'm curious to hear if, I know that you have moved, are moving, are sort of moved into a new place.
I moved. I know you didn't believe that it would ever happen, but I moved.
Yes. And so in your new place, did you have plans to add a video doorbell? Do you have a video doorbell? Have you thought about having a video doorbell?
We don't currently have one. When we had the contractors we had in who were doing wiring stuff just installed a standard old like wired doorbell. The one thing I like about it is that it has a doorbell at both the front and we have a side door that's like on our driveway, and it has different chimes depending on which doorbell rings, which is really nice, right? Like, because the doors are fairly far apart. You don't want to run over to the front door and be like, oh, there's nobody here. They're at the other door. So I appreciate that extremely basic level of doorbell feature, but we had not yet invested in a video doorbell. It appeals to me. I have to say, the things that make me wary about it are just all the capturing stuff that's happening beyond our front door, right? Like that's the stuff that comes into play with a lot of these doorbells. It's like, oh, but our street is fairly well trafficked. There's people going up and down all day. And so just trying to figure out, well, is there a place where it makes sense to have this doorbell that actually works and helps us without like infringing too much on other people's privacy?
Right.
But I like the idea of being able to see who's at the door. I think the biggest downside to Wyze's stuff, and I have one of their other cameras, is it doesn't have HomeKit compatibility unless they have changed that.
No.
And that is a bummer because the integration with HomeKit would be a big attraction for me. But I will say I agree with you on all your other points about the stuff that Wyze does. They make good quality products. They make them extremely cost efficient. You can't get this kind of deal anywhere else. Like, honestly, I looked at like just general purpose smart cameras last year, and I couldn't find anything else even remotely in the market like that's comparable to these. So it appeals to me. I'm kind of like, as you said, at like $65, I kind of feel like maybe it's worth giving a shot. Maybe I can find a place for it.
And that's the thing that surprised me with Wyze is I'm the same way. If it's not a HomeKit gadget, I don't have it in my home, except for Wyze, because of how simple and cost-effective they've made these products. So there are two big reasons why it gets a pass. One, the app has been super. This seems like this is like an episode funded by Wyze, but I swear it's not. It's just they genuinely make great products, and so yes, you have chosen wisely. Not only like the app is super simple to use. and the notifications aren't I've used some other security cameras where the notifications, even whenever I try to make adjustments, just always buzzing me left and right and so annoying. And then sometimes they just wouldn't work at all. With this one, I get the notifications when I want them and when I need them, and they make it very easy to change how and when. The fact that you don't have to have a subscription for at least some level of recording, and that most of their cameras come with a micro SD card slot so that you can do local recording. And then the other reason why is because I am continuing to have family members asking me for advice on what security cameras to buy, or a baby monitor camera or something like that. And doorbell cameras, those are quickly becoming very popular. And if I'm using this product, it makes it very easy for me to provide support for this product. So all of those things kind of come together to give me the reason why Wyze, again, gets a pass, even though it's outside of HomeKit. I would love to see these products come to HomeKit. And I hope that is something that's in the future. I've talked to Wyze before and have gotten a sort of no comment answer regarding that specific question. So who knows?
I think they know it's a thing. I've seen, like, when I spent some time looking around with my camera to try and figure out if there was a way to get it to work on HomeKit, and it, like, there's clearly a lot of people out there who want HomeKit support, and I'm sure they're aware of that fact. But I guess it's just a question of whether or not they can make it happen.
Yes, agreed. So, well, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed for that. But in the meantime, this app has a place on all of my devices, and I use it all the time. So, let's go ahead and move on. I want to talk about Google to kind of reassure folks. I think as we look to the future of how the smart home is going to be, Matter, as we've talked on the show a lot, is going to play a huge role in the future of the smart home. And I think truly this time, we've said that about previous types of technologies, and this seems to be the one where all of the companies are genuinely hopping on board. And Google has put out a thing saying, hey, look, not only are all of our Nest devices going to be interoperable with Matter, but we're also giving developers right now the tools that they need to make sure that the integrations and services they have on the Google devices will work with Matter when Matter comes out. So we have to talk about, lay some more ground on this first before we get into it, because a lot of people, I've noticed whenever in the smaller group of people who talk about Thread and Matter and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and NFC and all these technologies, they talk about them. They sometimes get Thread and Matter confused. Thread is I consider a really nifty, really powerful communications protocol that lets devices communicate with one another in a sort of node-based mesh system that's a lot like the mesh Wi-Fi that we're used to, that actually self-heals and strengthens as you add more devices to the network. So it's one of the only networks that gets stronger the more devices you add, as opposed to gets weaker because the signals kind of cross and don't properly interoperate very well. So Thread is a protocol for communicating among devices, communicating and controlling devices. Wi-Fi is another protocol for communicating and controlling devices. Bluetooth is another protocol for communicating and controlling devices. And NFC plays a role in all of this. It's we'll talk about that in a second. It's not quite the same thing, of course, as many of you know. Above all of that is a group called Matter, the Connectivity Standards Alliance, which is seeking to create it's like a framework. It's kind of hard to give it a precise name, but it is the idea that even if you're using a Google Nest, that the other smart home devices you have in your home, whether they're using Thread or Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to communicate with other things on the network, that you will be able to access those. And so it is kind of a a framework and a handbook almost for developers who make these different products, developers, manufacturers who make these different products, to properly let these devices interoperate, which means that there will come a time when from my home app on my iPhone, I would be able to control the different features of a Google Nest display that I have in my home or an Amazon Echo show that I have in my home because of Matter existing sort of at the upper level. Now, the first devices that are going to come out are likely to be lights and I think locks are going to come later, cameras and those kinds of things. They're really starting with some of the either always powered on or the low power devices as the way to kick things off. And the idea is that if you buy the product, no matter which system you're using, you will be able to connect to it. And no matter what communications method it's using, be it Thread or Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, or in some cases Ethernet, you will be able to communicate with those products. And I mean, there are big names: Google, Apple, Comcast, Ikea, NXP, which is NXP makes the NXP and Silicon Labs and a few others make a lot of the chips that you find in these smart devices that folks have right now. Of course, Google is the owner of Nest, which originated the Thread protocol. And so Thread was built into Google's stuff or Nest's stuff long before it ever came to kind of every platform. So all of that's to say, Google is now sort of helping other people get ready for Matter. And I think that's awesome. And if you are a developer for Apple, or if you like some of us are press who have developer accounts to kind of keep up with things, then you know that Apple is also preparing for the future with Matter as well. So come this next year, we should start to see Matter really take off, and then we'll start to see kind of the fruits of that labor as companies continue to work on that. So yeah, I don't know, Dan, if you've got any. Right now, Thread is available in some devices. The HomePod Mini allows for HomeKit over Thread support for different devices, and I've got a few of those. Do you know if any of the smart devices you have are Thread enabled?
I don't think any of the ones I currently have use Thread. I do have a HomePod Mini. I have some older versions. I know some of Eve's new products. I believe they have Thread versions of those, but I'm still running some of the older versions. So I don't think I have anything right now that takes advantage of it. But I'm really excited to get to that point where I can take advantage of that protocol, because it does seem like it is providing for things that could be way more robust than the way that we do stuff now. Not to mention keeping stuff all right now. You're dealing with so many smart devices that are on your Wi-Fi, right? Like it's frustrating. And especially if you have those devices that require things like, you got to have a hub plugged into your Ethernet in order for these smart devices to talk over the network. And the idea of sort of shifting the onus of that onto the devices themselves strikes me as just way more efficient and just spending less time pulling my hair out. So I'm very excited for that future, as well as Matter, just like getting to the point where you have all your devices kind of talking to each other and working and on the same page. I think that will potentially bring a lot more people into smart home tech, because it'll feel a little less scary, hopefully.
I agree. And I got to tell you, the lack of latency with Thread still boggles my mind. I open it. This is a battery powered contact sensor on the door. And you open or close the door, and immediately the automation that's associated with that garage door entryway opening, it happens just right away. And the only time I've been able to get that outside of this is with Zigbee by way of the Hue setup. And so having that latency in low power devices that aren't even plugged in, it boggles the mind. So there's a real future for this. We've got a lot more to talk about, but we do need to take a quick break, because I want to tell you about Molecule. Molecule is reimagining the future of clean air, and it starts with the air purifier. It's not just an innovation on existing technology, by the way, but it's an actual scientific breakthrough in air purification. Did you know that indoor air can be up to 5 times worse than outdoor air, according to the EPA. If you listen to the show, you're probably not surprised by that because I often talk about why indoor air is so much worse. We got to get that airflow going. There are lots of dead skin cells floating around in the air, among other things. Molecule's core technology, which is called PICO, or photoelectrochemical oxidation, actually destroys harmful pollutants in the air, like viruses, bacteria, mold, and chemicals, instead of just collecting them on filters. Molecule air purifiers are designed to help protect homes, businesses, and medical spaces, so you know they're destroying pollutants and providing clean air. In fact, Molecule's PICO technology meets the performance requirements in FDA guidance for use in helping reduce the risk of exposure to SARS-CoV-2, which of course is the COVID-19 virus in healthcare settings. While it's important to maintain other good preventative practices, this is an extra layer of virus protection for your spaces. Molecule's technology and filtration systems have been tested and verified by independent third-party labs. Molecule now offers its breakthrough PICO technology across a range of products, providing a clean air solution for a range of environments. Cleaner air is just better air. Dirty indoor air can contain allergens like dust and pollen and pet dander, as well as other pollutants like VOCs, bacteria, mold, and viruses. Molecule air purifiers don't just capture these offenders, but they actually destroy them. The Molecule Air Mini is designed for rooms up to 250 square feet. The Molecule Air is for larger rooms up to 600 square feet. And the Molecule Air Pro is for rooms up to 1,000 square feet. They also have the Molecule Air Mini Plus, which helps protect small rooms with a particle sensor and auto protect mode, which adjusts fan speeds based on the sensor. And of course, what we mentioned earlier, the Molecule Air Pro RX received 510K Class 2 medical device clearance for medical purposes to destroy bacteria and viruses in the air. For a limited time, save up to $120 on Molecule air purifiers by visiting molecule.com. That's MOLEKULE.com and using the promo code STT120. Enjoy free shipping and a 30-day at-home trial on your order. That's code STT120 at molecule.com. Our thanks to Molecule for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. Let's get back to it. I want to talk a little bit about some speaker systems. It starts with Ikea, who has come out with is working on it. It kind of leaked. What's cool is that this company has really jumped kind of headfirst into the smart home market and has come out with some really clever products. We showed a picture frame speaker not too long ago where you hang it on your wall. It looks like a picture frame. You can change out the front of it, but inside are speakers. And I have heard very good things in early reviews that the speakers actually sound really good. Now, Ikea is working on a Bluetooth speaker that has something called Spotify Tap. This is a Bluetooth speaker that also serves as a lamp, which is pretty typical for Ikea's designs. But what's fascinating is the Spotify Tap functionality, which is a kind of one-touch method for playing Spotify. I've got something similar on a Bluetooth speaker of mine. They just call it the Smart Button, and you can set it up with whichever service you want to use, Apple Music or Spotify or what have you, and then pressing and holding on that button will play whatever playlist you choose kind of to be attached to that Smart Button. This button is similar to that, giving you access to Spotify with just a simple one-button press. This, I think, is a really fascinating sort of co-branding effort, and it's interesting seeing Ikea kind of, in a way, bless a certain company over others. And I wonder if part of this is them looking at their customer base and feeling like Spotify is that service that many of the people who buy from them use, or if it just seemed like a good idea at the time. It's kind of hard to know there, but it's important to note that this is also just a standard Bluetooth speaker, so you can use it with anything. It's just that Spotify Tap button is direct access to Spotify's system. And then the other speaker that I wanted to talk about, and we can kind of hit back on both of these, is the HomePod Mini, which now comes in 3 new color options. So if you wanted to stand out in your space instead of fade into the background in your space, you can. You mentioned that you have a HomePod Mini in your home. Do you have multiple HomePod Minis? Do you do bookshelf speakers? Do you have any other Bluetooth speakers? What's your audio setup at your place?
I have a huge assortment of speakers. We have a HomePod Mini in the kitchen, which is sort of the default smart speaker for the downstairs. And in my office, on either side of me right now, I actually have a full-size HomePod on either side in a stereo pair. I like the HomePod Mini a lot. I've played with a bunch of different speakers in our sort of like as our primary smart speaker. I've had Echoes. I had a Sonos One with using Amazon as well. I like the HomePod Mini a lot. I was tempted by the orange model because our kitchen has sort of orange accents, and I was like, oh, that would go really nice. It look not pop a little bit more than the black one that I've got there right now. But I kind of have gone all in on either Apple's HomePod speakers or Sonos, just for the ability to sort of get my music synced up easily everywhere within my house. So between sort of the Sonos integration and its support for AirPlay, I can basically, start playing music and have it go to every single room in our house, to my wife's consternation sometimes. And so I think, I've enjoyed Ikea, of course, has done a team up with Sonos. So they've got that picture speaker you mentioned, as well as like a lamp one. And I have just one of their Ikea bookshelf speakers that has Sonos integration.
Oh, nice.
And that's great. It's fantastic to be able to have all these options and sort of, mix and match, but have them work together. So, I think in this case, particularly interesting, the integration with Spotify probably is good for Spotify too, right? They don't have their own sort of speaker system. So being able to team up with IKEA and have that, I think is probably a good move for both of them.
I agree. One of the things that I find interesting about a lot of these smart home products is they're only just now in some cases being mindful of the fact that most often these products are not going to individuals. They're going to homes with multiple people. So you just mentioned earlier, like playing music throughout the home, and that doesn't often get to be a thing that someone does, maybe at a dinner party or something like that, or if you both are wanting to listen to an album together. But day in and day out, as people are going about doing their own things in the space, you don't get to do that. And when the smart speaker system or smart speaker first kicked off, we didn't have a lot of the features that we have now, where there's more voice recognition and the ability for individuals to be able to communicate with those. And I sometimes think about the Bluetooth systems as well, and how Bluetooth pairing, the newest technologies have some of the multi-pairing options that make it easy.
Right. Yeah.
But you could probably remember a time when you were listening to something and then somebody turned on the device that they had that then took over the Bluetooth connection, and it
so frustrating. Or you want to go to a different device and you're like, oh, I'm playing on my iPad now. And it's like, all right, I got to disconnect with the Bluetooth thing, and then I got to reconnect it with the new device. And it was always just very finicky to try and figure out like which audio is going where. And that's one of the reasons I like using sort of AirPlay as my benchmark. There is, it's the same system no matter what, right? If my wife wants to listen to something in the dining room, well, I want to listen to something in my office. It's the same interface, right? No matter what. It's not confused. Oh, you're using this speaker, you have to go through this app, or you have to use this, like go to settings here. No, it's just AirPlay. And for me, like standardizing on that made a huge difference.
I agree. Yeah, I think AirPlay is really fantastic for especially, music listening or audio listening throughout the home. And it's been my solution for sure. I wanted to mention, we've got a lot of these different services, or not services so much, but devices that you buy into, these hardware products that you buy into. But some of these hardware products are built upon the services that exist on them. They live and die by the services that exist on them. And so, that applies as much as to a smartphone as it does to a device like a set-top box. Because if suddenly all of the developers in the App Store rush out of the App Store, that iPhone looks a lot less appealing than it did when all of those apps were there. Same thing applies to something like a box that you have sitting on top of your television, or maybe it's built into your television in the case of Roku. Roku and Google can't seem to get along, and because of that, YouTube has a sort of storied history on the platform of being there, then not being there, then being there, and now it may end up going away again as Roku struggles with the ability to keep YouTube on its Roku box. And again, this also is this applied to Google's Nest devices in the past, the Nest hubs at least, where you weren't able to watch YouTube videos on the displays. So this, or no, it couldn't have been Nest, or it couldn't have been YouTube because that belonged. It must have been the Amazon Echo Show.
Yeah, there was a fight with Amazon. Yeah, that's
what it was. Yeah, because obviously Google's own company can. Yeah. Anyway, that didn't make sense. There we go. We got there in the end. So this made me think about not only, somebody buying one of these because, oh, this is where I watch my YouTubes and my Netflix, but also those stupid remotes with the stupid buttons on them that are shortcuts to these different services. Anytime I see a remote like that, I get a little upset because I'm thinking, how long until that service goes away? Why would you do that? I could go dig up a couple of them that have ones that the services just don't exist anymore.
Right.
So it really is kind of a gamble these days with some of the internet-connected devices that we buy. And Roku is first and foremost in my mind. It's, again, it's kind of funny we talk about AirPlay. When I because I hardly ever watch YouTube. I don't really use YouTube. But in the rare occasion, like this gets rarer by degrees. In the rare occasion where, one, I'm watching YouTube, and then more rare that I see a video that I want to share with somebody, and 3, more rare that they are in my home and we are near the television and I would rather have it on the big screen than just on my phone. So I will say this happened for the first time in a million years the other day, where there was a trailer that I wanted to show my partner. I use AirPlay for that, because it's so much cleaner than if I were to either launch the YouTube app on the Apple TV and then do the search for the thing, or use the built-in Roku system on the TCL television that I have to be able to get there. And so sometimes it pays to use I don't know, maybe you're an author, maybe you have a word for it, because it's not platform agnostic at all. AirPlay is not, but
right.
It has, you know what I mean? It has the sort of aroma of it doesn't. It has no ties to anything else.
Right. I mean, it's a little bit like we were talking about before with Thread versus Matter, right? Where you've got sort of a protocol to deal with content, right? Streaming audio or streaming video or whatever, and it's like it doesn't really care most of the time what that video or what that audio is, where it's coming from, et cetera. In the same way that many of us on our Macs or PCs are used to being able to okay, I've got audio coming in from this app and I want to send it to this app. You can do that. It doesn't really matter what those sources are. But I do the same thing, Micah, and I say it's frustrating at times for me. I have a bug that I run into sometimes where if I try to AirPlay YouTube to my Apple TV, it'll start and then stop and then start and then stop, and I'll be like, oh, this is. So I end up doing that thing where I go to the YouTube app and be like, all right, let me find that video, and it's the worst every time. I'm like, this is so much harder than it needs to be because of whatever bug is causing that. But yeah, it's a pain.
I think we'll say it's an indiscriminate protocol.
That's a good word. That's a very good word.
All right, let's move on, because this next thing is so awesome, and I don't even care if it doesn't have AirPlay. You can buy a sofa from, I hate the name, Lovesac. Horrible name, but very cool product. It's a sectional that has a surround sound system built into the sectional itself. I have to tell you, the number of times where I've thought, because I've got my television in front of me, and because Apple fixed this and it works now, I use my single HomePod, the original HomePod, not the HomePod Mini, but my single original HomePod. I wish I would have bought two, sort of, but I didn't. As the television output for watching stuff on the Apple TV. It sounds great. It sounds better than the TCL Zone speakers, and it works for me. But I've thought a number of times, not only about switching to a couple of HomePod Minis, but also about taking that HomePod and putting it near me and like setting it near the sofa, which is across from the television, as opposed to having it on the other side with the television, because the audio right there next to you means you don't have to have it as loud, which is kind of nice. And with the little bits of bass and stuff, with the little bit of rumble, that also feels good. Then someone would say, well, do a surround sound system. Not only are those pricey if you want to do it right, but then it also means sticking up these speakers in different places or putting them on posts. And there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Sure.
So somebody said, why don't we take all of these speakers and make them so that they are out of view and they are like touching you practically, so that those experiences sound like they're coming at you from right near you. I just think this is a really clever idea. I don't know if it's going to end up sounding muffled. I don't know. I'd love to like be able to go check one of these out somewhere. But as Andrew Lisweski says on Gizmodo, put an upgraded movie theater experience in your living room with sounds thumping under your butt. Because yes, some of the speakers are built in under the sofa itself. Some of them are on the sides. And then, they said, well, while we're at it, hold my beer. I'm also going to build in a wireless charger and some charging ports on the side, so you can use those too. This is so cool to me.
It's cool. I think my biggest concern with it is like, I feel like what happens when a speaker breaks or something. Like, I don't know. It's just like it's a lot of moving pieces in your sofa, right? Where it's like, is it going to be a good sofa as well as good speakers? Like, are you good at one but not so great at the other?
Right.
Like, I don't know. I mean, it's Harman Kardon, which is they are a solid speaker brand who they've teamed up with here. So like, I feel good about that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm fascinated by the idea. Like you, I'd love to try it out somewhere. I don't think I'm in the market, but I think it's clever, and it does get rid of that problem of having like unsightly speakers like littered around your living room.
Yes. So there are a couple of things. I wonder if they're using some sort of acoustically transparent foam or material, which is going to make it less comfy to sit on. And then I wonder too, it says different fabric finishes that are designed to allow sound to easily pass through. But I don't know, like, what happens if somebody spills water or some other thing on it? How much am I going to have to pay to replace that Harman Kardon speaker? There are lots of questions here, but I do think it is a cool idea. And as I said, this is the part where I do wish that CES was an in-person thing in a safer world, because they would definitely have this at CES, and then I could go sit on it and say, yeah, this is awesome, or, oh no, this is gimmicky. This doesn't actually work.
Right, exactly.
Just shy of $3,000 if you want to own your own sectional with speakers inside.
Not cheap.
Not cheap. But then I thought about other sectionals that I've seen on like Wayfair and stuff like that.
Pretty pricey. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're going to buy, like you said, if you're going to buy a nice sofa and a surround sound setup, it could send you back more than $3,000 pretty easily.
Exactly. So who knows? Maybe as long as the sofa's comfortable,
that's all that matters.
Let me know if I can come check it out at one of your showing spots. I already forgot their name. Lovesack. There it is. I would love to see about it. All right, we're going to take another quick break before we come back with more. And then we will chat with Dan a little bit about just an update on his smart home as he's in his new place now. This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by userway.org. Userway is amazing and has a vision that all of us here at Twit really connect with. I'm so glad that we have partnered up with Userway. Every website, without exception, needs to be accessible because it's a public entity. So it's actually required. You have to have your website be accessible. But let's be real. It's not just about matching the requirements that are given out. It's also just because it's the right thing to do. It's federal ADA law that mandates equal access to services for all Americans, and you could be liable if your website does not meet ADA laws for accessibility. So what do you do about that? Well, you should check out UserWay. It has an incredible AI-powered solution that tirelessly enforces the hundreds of WCAG guidelines, that's WCAG. With just one line of JavaScript, UserWay can achieve more than an entire team of developers. UserWay's AI and machine learning solutions power accessibility for over 1 million websites. What kind of websites? Well, it's trusted by Coca-Cola, Disney, eBay, FedEx, and many other leading brands. I'm sure you've heard of a few of those I mentioned. And now UserWay is making its best-in-class, enterprise-level accessibility tools available to small and medium businesses. So when you scale, you need UserWay. An accessible and compliant website isn't only the right thing to do, it also makes business sense. The Achilles heel of websites. It's registration forms, it's nav menus, and shopping carts that are not accessible. Millions of people require UserWay just to purchase your products. For years, UserWay has been on the cutting edge, creating innovative accessibility technologies that push the envelope of what's possible with AI, with machine learning, and computer vision. UserWay's AI automatically fixes violations at the code level, and here are some of the things that UserWay does. It auto-generates image alts, so it writes those image descriptions for you. It remediates complex nav menus and ensures that all pop-ups are accessible. It fixes vague link violations and fixes any broken links. It ensures your website makes use of accessible colors, and this is cool, while remaining true to your brand. And it also gives you a detailed report of all of the violations that were fixed on your website. UserWay is platform agnostic. We were just talking about being platform agnostic. So whether you're using WordPress or Shopify or Wix, UserWay is cost-effective and easy to add. And the same goes for AEM, Sitecore, or SharePoint. UserWay integrates seamlessly with all. Let UserWay help your business meet its compliance goals and improve the experience for your users. You can check out their free scanning tool to see if your website is ADA compliant. I think I'm going to do that with my website just to see if I've got everything locked in. Oh, and by the way, the original voice of Siri, who is considered, of course, the world's most popular voice assistant, has a message about UserWay. Check this video out.
UserWay is trusted by more than 1 million websites and 60 million users with disabilities. Visit userway.org to learn how one line of code can make your website accessible.
Nice. UserWay can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With UserWay, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly and customize it to fit their needs. It's also a perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. Go to userway.org/twit and get 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. UserWay, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. And thanks so much to UserWay for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today. All right. Let's see what's next. Oh, we didn't get a chance to talk last week, Matthew and I, about the HTC Vive Flow. So I thought we would talk a little bit about that today. This is a $499 device, the HTC Vive Flow, and it is sort of like goggles or sunglasses, but sort of big sun safety glasses that you can put on your face. And the idea here is that HTC listened to the complaints that people had with VR and what they struggled with VR. And one of those things was sort of feeling trapped, putting on a huge honking interface, a bunch of straps that can be kind of, intimidating at first. And, it gets in the way of a lot of stuff. So they thought, how can we do it? How can we make VR more accessible to more people without feeling like it takes all of this extra cruft just to get going, just to get started? And so they came out with the HTC Vive Flow. Now, at $499, it is quite pricey. And the idea here is not to use it for, in-depth gaming or anything like that. Instead, this is a device for being able to watch content in VR, those kinds of experiential setups. And I'm curious, Dan, how much you have played around with VR in general, if you've got any VR headsets, and if this HTC Vive Flow at all appeals to you.
I don't have any currently. I've played around a little bit with some of them. I think the main one, I did use a PSVR at one point, and I think I tried an Oculus at one point. And it has appealed to me. I just haven't found the killer app that has gotten me to be like, oh yeah, I definitely need to invest in my own VR headset. Like that's a thing that I'm definitely going to be using. And I always assumed that would be gaming in some variety, but as an Xbox user, there isn't really a good VR option on that platform yet. So something like this I have some interest. I would be interested to try it out. I think trying to design something that feels less cumbersome and more like, a casual use is a great idea. It sounds from what I've heard like there are unfortunately some trade-offs with this, right? Like there are some weaknesses to what things you can do or how well it works when you're getting away from that sort of traditional goggle-like experience. But I would be interested in checking out, and I think it's clear that the progress in VR in general is really coming along very quickly in a lot of ways, right? Like there's a lot happening in the market still. It hasn't totally like nailed exactly what VR is or what it's for, but it does feel like the technology itself is getting ever more refined.
I agree. Yeah. It's still got a battery pack attached to it, so you will have some. You got to admit that the people look a little goofy using it, but I look equally goofy when I strap on.
It's GoldenEye too with the. I love this 3. I remember playing GoldenEye back in the 90s. This is kind of what it reminds me of.
Is that big head mode? Wow, how do they enable that cheat?
Play Odd Job.
It's not fair.
I tried with the Oculus Quest 2 watching content in VR, and it just wasn't. It didn't add anything to the experience for me. Now, mind you, I was watching not VR content, but watching.
Right.
Like, it seemed as if I was sitting in a theater watching Netflix on the big screen, and it didn't do that. Now, can you imagine falling asleep in this huge VR headset?
I can barely wear headphones when I try to fall asleep sometimes. I think a large goggle would definitely be. Also, yeah, the idea of having giant screens in front of my eyes before I go to sleep, I think that's a struggle.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are a lot of folks out there, myself included, who would be.
This is when I want to unplug, right, Micah? That's when you're going to bed. You don't want to stop looking at your screens.
Yeah, don't get me started on the issues with blue light and the internal components of our brain, because I'll go on for too long. So let's move on to talk about another sort of, this isn't VR, this is sort of an augmented audio experience that I chalk up to a product for people who want to annoy others while they're on public transit together. This is Anker owns the Soundcore brand, which makes a bunch of different audio devices. And now they have a pair of audio glasses that have 2 sets of speakers, one behind your ear and one in front of your ear on either side. So 4 speakers total. And for $200, you can get this pair of sunglasses in multiple styles and be able to listen to music in what they're, considering like virtual surround sound. I guess it's not even virtual, it's actual surround sound, given that it's coming from 4 different places. But I see tweets and whatnot all the time with people complaining about somebody being on transit with speakerphone turned on. So I don't know where I'm supposed to wear these things. Like, where can I feel comfortable wearing a pair of speakers that are blasting music out or my work call out? Who's this for? Where is this for?
I think they're not supposed to. You're not. So they say that in most cases, people outside won't notice the music, but if you like really turn it up, there will be some sound leakage, a la some, like if you're wearing open headphones or something like that, right? So I guess are these more
bone conduction then?
No, I think they're still traditional speakers. It's just where the speakers are positioned are like closer to earbuds essentially in some way, but I don't know. Like
if I whisper
it is strange.
Up really close, it sounds louder because I'm right next to your ear. Versus if
exactly. But I agree with you that I don't think I would think bone conduction would be a lot smarter usage. I mean, it's bulky and it's got its own troubles, but like that is a case where then people outside really couldn't hear anything. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of these sort of speaker glasses, sunglasses things that have come out, and I have yet to try any of them. Mainly because, again, I feel like this is kind of like going back to the couch surround sound thing. But it's like if you make something, I want a pair of nice sunglasses and I want a pair of nice headphones, and I don't want necessarily to have those things tied together. Yeah. Because like if my headphones break, can I no longer use my sunglasses, or vice versa? If my sunglasses break, I can't use my headphones anymore. So, maybe I'll just stick to my Ray-Bans and my AirPods.
Yeah. I've got a pair of Echo frames that are just sitting in a drawer somewhere because they were the worst sounding Bluetooth speakers Bluetooth headphones I've ever had. And I didn't want ALEXA on my face. So it was like, maybe these ones sound better, but again, I would constantly be paranoid. Like, am I disrupting someone else, even if it's just right there in my ear?
Sure.
That very high frequency, like, are there bees having a conversation around me somewhere? Anyway, speaking of headgear and face masks, well, yeah, that's the segue. Razer is kicking off, I believe today, is a pre-order for its new smart RGB face mask. It's called the Zephyr. And it says you can buy the Zephyr either by itself for $100 or a $150 starter pack that has 3 replacement filter kits. Individual replacements are $30. Now, it is... It's got RGB lighting that you can, play around with to customize the lights. In fact, you connect it to an app that lets you customize the lights, and then the mask itself has dual fan active air filtration with N95 filters. So you put this on, and not only are you getting nice filtered air, but it's not just you passively breathing to make the air flow. It's got little fans inside. So there's a lot of mechanical and electronic components inside of this that start to justify the price for something very goofy that might be a great Halloween costume. Because what I'm thinking is it's a little late into this whole thing to go for this, right?
Sorry, just being at the coffee shop with the person wearing the just normal surgical mask. And then it's just like, yes, this is a normal meeting that I have.
Hello, I am having a cup of coffee. You're better at it than I am.
You can't drink a cup of coffee. My God.
That's true.
I am having a cup of coffee, but I can't drink it, so you will have to drink it for me.
Perhaps the fans will suck this cup of coffee into the mask.
Oh, no, I just electrocuted myself again.
Yeah, I just broke my $150 RGB face mask.
I feel like maybe if you're, I feel like if you're like maybe if you like play like an esports competitor, right? Yes. And like you're going to meets and you need to have your mask on, but you're at the meets. Okay, I can see it. Yeah. It like works with the style, like, it looks cool, etc. But I think most people probably don't. Yeah.
I guess it's also a good way to get people to leave you alone. I would stay very far away from someone who's wearing this. I'd be like, I want nothing to do with that person. I have it on good authority that one of our colleagues, Kevin, is planning on purchasing this. So we'll have to see if it makes its way into the studio and maybe talk about it at that point. But all right, let's move on. I wanted to talk about this really interesting story. It's loosely smart tech. I mean, your smartphone is literally called a smartphone, so that's smart tech. There's this great, I thought, a really interesting article from Lifehacker that turned out to be an almost direct copy from an earlier Tom's Guide article that turned out to be a regurgitation of several other articles that exist online. But we'll go to the Tom's Guide one, and it says how to use secret codes on iPhone. And in this are a list, after you get past the like 3 or 4 paragraphs of preamble, of different options that you can do by typing in codes on your iPhone phone number area. So the first one is just finding your IMEI. A lot of people know how to do this, so I'm not going to talk about that one. But there are options to hide your caller ID on your iPhone, which, yes, you're probably saying right now, but there's a setting in the phones. Yes. So that one's not very cool. Let's get into the really fun stuff. The first one is something called field test mode.
Yep.
And when you do this, it brings up this whole, now on versions of iOS older than iOS 15, you could actually use field test mode to see a numerical value for the signal strength. As when iOS 15 rolled around, for some reason, it's not there now. But you can get a look at some of the interesting internal specs. So you type in *3001 £. Yes, I say £, instead of hashtag. 1, 2, 3, although you're supposed to call it an octothorpe, apparently. 4, 5, $, and then you hit call. And now I've got all this information for the AT&T signal on my iPhone. And I can scroll up and see a bunch of different numbers. It says, rates and LTE. And if I tap on the list, I can see 5G statistics and LTE statistics and miscellaneous statistics. There's one called cellular rat retention. I have a feeling that's probably like rate retention, but it's just shortened. But I like to think
how many rats? How many rats
are being kept in cages? Exactly.
Yeah, a lot.
That are powering the network. Apparently there are 5.
That's a lot of rats.
If I use the standby pref reading. There's a lot in here that I don't understand, but I just thought it was cool to be able to access this. I felt like I was behind the curtain or something. And then it appears that if you've got a dual device SIM, you can probably tap on the part that says AT&T and switch it out for a different one. That's my guess. You can go back to the phone, and there are some other ones. You can divert incoming calls with certain numbers, so forwarding calls when you don't answer, or forwarding calls whenever your phone is unreachable, or forwarding calls whenever your phone is busy, which I don't think call forwarding setting offers all of that different. I think it offers call forwarding in general, but not based on those different settings, so that was kind of cool. And then call waiting, and this one is kind of interesting. You can set up the ability to prevent outgoing calls on an iPhone. So maybe you've got a niece or a nephew or something and you hand over your phone, but you don't want them accidentally calling the police or whatever. So you can type in *33*, and then type in a PIN, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the £, and then call, and it will block the ability to place outgoing calls until you type in that same thing. So don't forget that PIN.
Yeah, don't forget you put it in either, right?
Exactly. You're like, why won't my calls work? And then the last thing, there are some other ones that they briefly mention. You can, if you've got a prepaid plan, you can check how much is left. You can also use that. I triggered a text message from AT&T telling me how much of my unlimited plan I've used, and it broke it down by all of the different device numbers that are on my plan, including my Apple Watch and my iPad. And so it could show me, here's how much is being used of the plan, including the mobile hotspot ability. So really interesting there. And then there was something called enhanced full rate mode. I could not get that to work on iOS 15, or at least on my iPhone, but I thought this was a really cool setting that maybe is available in earlier versions of iOS, or might not be with AT&T or whatever. But what this does is it makes it so that your phone by default, whenever it places calls, it does it at a level that is not full to the max so that the calls sound like they do, they're compressed how they are, and it doesn't eat up as much battery. But if you'd like to have your phone eat up more battery for having a better call that's closer to voice over IP, then you can turn on enhanced full rate mode, and then it will use more battery, but it will sound better. So if you place a lot of phone calls, then maybe you want to try to turn that on. Again, I was trying to turn it on just to see how it worked. It did not turn on for me. So I don't know if that's something specific to my device or if it's just something that doesn't work. So yeah, just interesting that there are all these secret background codes that exist in our devices that you can kind of check out. All right. We got a couple of more stories I want to talk about here, including, this one's kind of sad. Because of the component shortages around the world right now, Apple a lot of Apple devices are slipping because of the component shortages. So it's making it that people aren't able to get the latest devices, including, mind you, the iPad Mini that's been out for a while. These devices continue to slip. The PlayStation, the new PlayStation continues to be hard to purchase. The new Xboxes continue to be hard to purchase. They're talking about not until later next year getting to a place where they can. Raspberry Pi, for the first time ever, has announced that it has to increase its prices due to component shortages. So this is unprecedented, literally. The company has never done this before. That you did not have, or you could go and purchase one of these low cost devices for a reasonable price, and honestly, still a reasonable price. And the company says it's only temporary. It's only because we've got component shortages. But they hope to get back to things as they were in the past. But I think you've got one, maybe more Raspberry Pis. I've got a couple in my home.
I actually don't have any. I've played around with them in like other people's before, but I don't have my own. That's right. You run Homebridge on your NAS. I do run Homebridge on my Synology. Yeah. So I have played around with other people's Raspberry Pis and have helped people build them and stuff like that. And they're very cool. I love the company. I think they do a lot of great work. And every once in a while, I'm tempted to do it, but I know it's like, all right, until I have a good use case in mind, I don't want to spend money on another computer. But it is sad because it's so cool how they've been able to produce this for such a low cost for so long and really make it so accessible to people, because it's an amazing amount of technology, right? If you think back 20 or 30 or 40 years to how much this would cost to get something of this specs, like it's, used to be this for multiple hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Now you can buy it for like under $50 still, even with that price increase.
Yes. And hopefully we will start to see a return to normalcy in the coming year, so that more people can get these old mini computers. I've got one that runs Homebridge, and then I bought another one for some network stuff that I ended up not sticking with. So now I just use it as kind of a machine to experiment with a bunch of different little projects. All right, folks. I think we can go ahead and move along to talk just briefly to Dan about the current state of his smart home and maybe what plans he has next, if any, for adding new devices. Alrighty, Dan. So you were on the show before, and I talked to you a little bit about your smart home at the time, and you were in the midst of transitioning to the new space and resetting up your smart home. And I know from my own experience that to this day, and now 3 years later after moving from Missouri to California, I still haven't reset up everything that was in my original home. So how is your smart home setup coming along? Did you find that there were some devices that you realized you didn't really need, or did you feel like there were some that you went right away and you're like, I have to make sure that these are plugged in, this is turned on, this is connected? How was that process for you?
Yeah, so I have a variety of smart home tech in the house at the moment, most of which I've set up, the stuff that was in my apartment, and sort of gone a step further. One of the things that we had done when we moved in the house was had the Lutron Caséta switches put in for our living room and dining room and kitchen. So having control over the lights there with the actual physical switches has been great. That's replaced most of what I usually relied on Hue Bulbs for. I still use my Hue Bulbs in a couple different places for freestanding floor lamps, as well as here in my office. I have the ability to turn on the overhead lights, which are now Hue Bulbs. So I've got most of the lighting pretty well set up. The one thing I've played around with is just trying to figure out, now that I have more control over lighting throughout the house, being able to set up scenes. I never really dabbled that much in scenes before. I mainly just did direct light control, but I feel like I'm starting to see places more where it's at dinner time, we tend to we turn off the kitchen lights because we're done cooking, and we turn on the living room lights and we turn on the TV. And so I've tried to play around a little bit more with trying to think about how that might be simplified rather than having to tell Siri 3 times, all right, turn off these and turn this on and turn that on. So those were, kind of sort of my low hanging fruit. One thing I was able to for the moment anyways, get rid of was I used to use the Logitech Harmony Hub to control both my Apple TV and my Xbox. And I wanted to try and basically simplify my home AV setup a bit. So I removed the Harmony, and I now have, because I switched over to a Sonos Arc as a sound bar, which gave me support for HDMI CEC as well as ARC, the audio return channel. It means I can basically control my TV setup almost entirely from the Apple TV remote, which is great. I was really trying to simplify down to a single remote. The rub came when I finally did end up setting up both my Nintendo Switch and my Xbox, neither of which support HDMI CEC, and realized, I still need to be able to turn my TV on and switch to those inputs, and it's kind of killing me. So I did not return the Logitech Harmony yet. I've just defaulted to having my TV remote like on the lower level of my coffee table for those moments when I need it. But it does bum me out because it's like, it seems like these are advanced devices that should be able to do on something as simple as turn on a TV and switch an input. Alas. As I mentioned before, I got like a ton of Sonos devices throughout the house, so that was a big thing to set up. And my HomePods in my office, also a big major thing for me. I wanted to have one in there for sure, but I finally managed to get my second one set up back for my stereo pair, which is great. As far as the future goes, I don't know. I'm now got like a pretty stable setup at the moment. I'm very excited about like having that all working pretty well. And so I'm trying to figure out where is sort of the best bang for my buck in terms of like trying to switch over technology to smart tech. And the one thing that I am debating moving into the smart lock market, which my wife was very opposed to for a while. And then after the third time that she like locked herself out or came home, I was home, and like, she came home and like tried to open the door and the door was locked, and she's like, yeah, I can see the value of the smart locks now. So I may have sold her on that idea. We'll see. I've been looking at a couple options there. So that's one thing I'm excited about. And now you mentioned the Wyze doorbell up at the top, and now I'm like, well, maybe I should get one of those and play around with them. So the
Do you have
camera
a garage
setup.
Where you are?
I don't have a garage, but I just have a driveway.
Gotcha.
And so fortunately, I think where our current doorbell is on like our side door that's in the driveway, it points at the house next door rather than out at the street. So it's like not as bad in terms of like catching people walking down the street or whatever. So it's like, well, that might be a possibility. So I'm going to look into that now. Thank you for continuing to enable my smart home problem. Is that the right word? Problem? I mean, enthusiasm.
We don't call it a problem here. Yeah. There you go.
Passion.
Overall enthusiasm. Interesting. For me, you made the right choice with the Lutron Caséta stuff, because with that, it makes it easy for folks who are not into the smart home to be able to just operate those things like you normally would. And so that's one of the reasons why I've liked those devices so much from the get-go. With me kind of straggling on getting everything set up over time, I have added more scenes and things to kind of bridge the gap. But yeah, I totally understand. You've kind of got to get used to your new routines before you get there. Yeah. And once you do, then And the other problem is, I never really saw this place as a place that I would be staying for a long time. If the pandemic hadn't happened, would have gone out of here to somewhere else anyway, before this. And so I have the skills and the knowledge to be able to install those in-wall switches, but they're in a box because it takes a while to then undo them afterwards and put the ones that came with the house back in and all of that stuff. And from someone who has a couple of times left some of their smart switches at previous places because they didn't have time to get them all out, I decided to I knew I was going to be sticking around for a very long time. So I was like, I'll just let it be and move on, or, until I move on. So yeah, in the meantime, I have replaced a couple that were very important to me. But outside of that, I just have left it alone.
I will say the other thing that I've been like learning how to use a little bit more is this is the first time I've had a house with a smart thermostat too. So when we had our thermostat system redone last year, I had like a new furnace even put in. I got an Ecobee, so that has been running for a while. So I'm excited. I know you're an Ecobee fan, and there was a deal at one point for a couple of the little remote sensors too. So I bought a couple of those, and I've got there's one in my office, so it knows when I'm in here, and there's one in our living room because it's not where the thermostat is. So I want to make sure it knows when people are around. And then I also have 2 or 3 different types of temperature sense. So I've got a couple Eve degrees, monitoring temperature and humidity. And I've got a NetAtmo weather station, both inside and outside. So it is kind of wild to be able to be oh, what is the temperature in any room in my house right now?
All right. Well, I believe that brings us to the final segment of the show. I will go first because it seems I've forgotten to warn Dan about the picks of the week. And so... Pick what? I'll talk about mine. Some of you will be familiar with this because I talk about this product a lot. And it came up again the other day where I was looking at my Sleep Number and I thought, I've got to talk. And by Sleep Number, I don't mean that trademarked thing for those beds that cost way too much money so you can get the proper firmness or softness. My sleep score is what the Beautyrest sleep tracker monitor calls it. And it just made me realize, man, I love this thing. And I think other people would too. It comes in around about $100 whenever you go to order it from Amazon, depending on the time. I would use Camel, which is the website for tracking pricing drops to try to get it at its best price. But this is an underbed sleep tracker or under mattress sleep tracker that is very skilled at tracking sleep and does a better job, I feel, than an on-wrist sleep tracker or a phone that's placed on the bed to try to track your sleep or any of those other options. It comes with 2 foam paddles, and both of those foam paddles can track an individual person. So I've got one on the left side of the bed, one on the right side of the bed. And then in the app, you register it to whomever sleeps over that paddle. And then they can set up their own account and get their own independent notifications for their sleep score. So my partner has his own notifications for how well he slept. I have mine for me. This device will track respiration and movement and your overall sleep and all these other metrics. And as I said, you can set the threshold, but it will say an hour and a half after it's detected that you're awake and out of the bed, then it will send you an email or a notification, depending on what you want, to let you know. And if you'd like, it also has some AI features, so you can go in and sort of start to see, hey, we noticed that one of the notifications I've gotten before is when your heart rate is up, you don't sleep as well. Try to think of things that might make your heart rate go up while you're asleep. And one of those things for a lot of people is eating too close to bedtime because your body is digesting that food and providing energy to your body, which causes your heart rate to rise. And people don't sleep as well whenever their heart rate is up. And so that's one of the suggestions that they had for me. And it can give you, hey, you're going to bed at irregular times or waking up at irregular times, all sorts of data. And it's really good at collecting this data and presenting this data. And then what's cool too is that it integrates with Apple's Health app. So if I have other apps that also integrate with Apple's Health app, I can use those to pull that sleep data into those apps, or the Sleep Tracker app can use information from other apps to pull into the Sleep Tracker app to get better information. So all around, a really nice system that I think doesn't get enough attention out there. The Bedit Sleep Tracker, which Apple bought a while back, is one that people talk about a lot. And then, using an on-wrist device. But the thing that always bothered me about on-wrist devices, originally at least, now the Apple Watch can automatically detect, but it used to be that if you used an app or you used an on-wrist device, or occasionally if you used a display that was tracking your sleep, you had to tell it, hey, I'm going to bed now. And sometimes, I know I'm not supposed to, and this is one of those do as you say, not as you do things. You really shouldn't be doing other things in bed, not doing work or anything like that in bed. But sometimes I do sit in my bed whenever I'm not, about to go to sleep. And so because of that, I might go and sit in my bed a couple of hours before I actually go to bed and noodle around on the phone or something. And then it comes time to go to bed. And if I had an older system, like an app or something like that, I'd have to say, okay, now I'm going to bed. And then sometimes I would forget. So this just does it automatically. And I love that. I love that it knows when I'm going to bed and starts tracking from that point. And it knows when I wake up and starts or stops tracking at that point. So a really cool system that I think is well worth the cost if you want to track your sleep. Make your bed a smart bed with the Beautyrest sleep tracker monitor.
We actually interviewed the guy behind Full Power, which powers this device, back on Triangulation.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea.
Philippe Kahn.
There you go, Philippe Kahn.
And he's
what episode?
318. He invented the first camera phone and also is into sleep tech. So this device is partnered with Full Power, and
that is awesome.
He's the founder of Full Power, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Folks, you should definitely go check out that episode of Triangulation so that you can learn more about that as well. All right, Dan Moren, tell me about your pick if you were able to.
All right, so I can pick anything technology related. That's cool. We don't have any. Are you gonna?
Yeah.
Do we have like a specific?
No. It doesn't have to be smart home or anything. It doesn't even have to be tech.
Oh, I'm picking a piece of tech because this is kind of a great thing that I have invested in. I need to talk about it because I've invested in it. So we talked about me moving recently, and one of the things that happened when I moved was I had several boxes full of papers. I had all these papers, medical records, tax records. I finally found my lease for my old apartment, which I've now moved out of. And I thought to myself, boy, I hate having all this paper. I would love to be able to get all of it into a format where it's more usable and more searchable and all of that. And after dithering about it for a while on the recommendation of my friend Lex Friedman, who co-hosts several podcasts with me, I bought a Fujitsu ScanSnap IX 1600, which is a not cheap piece of hardware, but I will say it is worth it's worth the money. Everybody I talked to about scanning stuff was very enthusiastic about the ScanSnaps. I had heard very good things about them, and I have to say, it did not disappoint. I put at one point, I think I put a sheaf of like 30 or 40 papers in it. And it like chews through them. Like I am used to these scanners. Like I've got an old multifunction Brother printer, laser printer that has a flatbed on it. And like I used to scan stuff and it'd be like, you go in, you put it in, you go back to the computer, you go to image capture. It's slow. It's got to do an overview scan. You put like a whole sheaf of stuff in the ScanSnap and it just goes zip, 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 zip. That is the sound that it makes. It makes the zipping sound. And it is incredible. You can set it up to do OCR. So as it scans, it does, digitizes all the text and indexes the text so you can search for stuff in it. It handles receipts and business cards. And honestly, like even though it shows you like it's got like a little bracket that you can attach to make it easier to do business cards and receipts, it'll do them even if you just stick them in with like normal size paper. Like if you're doing a ton, you might want to like use the little like guides or whatever. But honestly, I haven't had a problem with just sticking in different sizes of paper and it scanning them. For the most part, it works fine. The software it's a little janky. I mean, it's cross-platform sort of software. But what's nice is you can set it up to just scan into a folder, and then it sort of minimizes your interactions with the software. So I just have stuff set up to basically scan like right into my iCloud drive. So I've got like a document archive there. Pop stuff in. All I have to do is like name it and choose which folder it goes in, and it's done. So if anything, at times it's like almost a little too good because it's like, well, if I put 50 pages in, like it's not like it delineates like, oh, this is one document, this is another document. It just puts them all into one big file. And it's like, all right. Oh. I mean, it's easy though, right? Like, it's like, I don't want to spend the time like going through all this stuff and figuring out what different files these are in. I just want to scan it all. So I've been very impressed with it. It's not cheap, like I said, but if you've got, and behind me, there are boxes upon boxes of things that need to get scanned still. I don't know. I'm sitting in front of them because I didn't want to show everybody the boxes of paper in my office. But it's great and it's incredibly fast. And I found the image quality really good. It's not like, You're not going to use this for like photo scanning. Probably it's not really as good for that. But if you just want documents that you can read and search, it is more than capable.
I need this. Dang it.
It's great.
Oh,
I have to say, I'm
I've
impressed.
got so
it's
many
very
papers
cute.
too. And the fact, like, so I have I don't want to, because at the time, I think that the scanner that I did have, it was a specific document scanner, really portable, really easy to use, but just does not compare to something that has this more, like, being able to scan more than one, because you take it, it was kind of like after you had gone paperless. Then as you're adding to it, this was very easy to use
that's easy.
you scan one receipt. But to get started with that,
the backlog,
it would be impossible to do with this. So, wow. Fujitsu ScanSnap IX1600, which is for the white and black versions, $399.99 on Amazon. So we'll link to that in the show notes if you're looking at a way to go paperless, which is totally within the smart tech realm anyway. That's a great way to do it. Folks, this brings us to the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. If you have questions, thoughts, feedbacks, concern, if you want to send me your 1,000-page PDF of all of the documents you scanned with the Fujitsu ScanSnap IX1600, send those to stt@twit.tv. You can tune in to watch us record the show live every Thursday at around about 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific by going to twit.tv/live. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to the show by going to twit.tv/STT. You can click to subscribe an audio or video across Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, etc., 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 etc. We try to be in all the places that you are and the different formats that you are in. This is a great time to mention Club Twit. That is our membership experience. For $7 a month, you can get all of our shows completely ad-free. You get your own personal little feed of all the shows that are ad-free. You get access to the members-only Twit Plus bonus feed. This has content you won't find anywhere else. Outtakes, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, around the scenes, over the scenes, etc. Things that don't make it into the show, you can check out there, along with some other stuff as well. And access to the members-only Discord server, which is so fun because not only do you get to chat with those of us at Twit and also your fellow Club Twit members, but our own Ant Pruitt is heading off the content for that platform. And so we've had lots of great stuff pop up, some fireside chats, some Q&As. There's a book club that's getting started soon, all sorts of stuff there in the Club Twit Discord. If that sounds good to you, head to twit.tv/clubtwit to check it out. We also got a question, or a couple of questions of folks saying, hey, $7, a little too much for me, but I really would like to support the show or shows that I listen to directly. Well, we're giving you that option if you use Apple Podcasts. If you'd like, in Apple Podcasts, you can head into a show, any of the Twitch shows works, and go to the audio feed, and you'll be able to subscribe to that show for $2.99 a month. When you do, you'll get the audio show ad-free while you are there. So if you'd like to support the shows directly, that's how you do it. Dan Moren, if folks would like to follow you online and check out the great work that you're doing, and also if you've got any plug, let us know now.
Sure. You can find everything I do over at dmoren.com, which includes links to my writing on both sixcolors.com, where Jason Snell and I write about all things Apple, as well as my weekly column over at Macworld, where I write about what's going on. Also in the world of Apple, you can also find a list of all the podcasts I co-host, which includes The Rebound Tech Podcast, as well as Clockwise, which Mike and I host every week over at Relay FM. And some other stuff if you're interested in superhero shows or Star Wars. I host shows about those too. I am also a sci-fi author, most recently of The Aleph Extraction, which came out last May, and the forthcoming Nova Incident, which comes out next July. And I would be most appreciative if you're interested in sci-fi spy novels, which are fun and adventurous and humorous, and I think you would enjoy these. So they're on my shelf back there. I'm on this side. They're on. My mirror is flipped, so I can't tell where I am. Anyways, yeah. So all that stuff at dmoren.com, and you can find me on Twitter at dmoren.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Smart Tech Today. We will see you later.
Have you ever read a tech news story and thought to yourself, man, I would love to talk to the person who wrote this to find out more information? Well, that's exactly what Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, do each and every week on Tech News Weekly. We read the stories that matter to us, we reach out to the people making a break in the tech news, and we invite them on to tell their story. And you can find it at twit.tv. Look for Tech News Weekly every Thursday.